Hey, Kris here. Come on into my kitchen. Get ready for 5-minute church. We've been teaching for a couple of weeks on Jonah, the inside story. Chapter 1, Jonah running from God. Chapter 2, Jonah running to God. We come today to the third chapter with Jonah running with God. Now, who do you run with? Somebody says, I run with the Hell's Angels. I run with the Crips or the Bloods. He runs with the wrong crowd. Well, everybody runs with somebody, but Jonah ran with God, and that's the best one to run with. Now, in chapter 3, the central text is verse 1. It says, the word of the Lord came the second time to Jonah, saying, rise and go to Nineveh. Now, I want to speak today on the God of the second chance, because number one, our God does give second and third and fourth and fifth chances. And we see that. You know, everybody's failed. Everybody's blown it. But God overlooks that and gives you a second chance. If you've blown it, if you've blown, I hope you've grown. See, you're not a failure until you fail to pick yourself up and go on again. A just man falls 7 times, but he rises up again. And failure is a detour. It's not a dead end. It's not the end of the road. And if you're on a detour, just follow it. You'll get back on the main road that leads to your personal Nineveh. Now, in the Bible, you have John Mark who chickened out. He failed, yet Paul gave him a second chance. Peter denied the Lord. The Lord didn't give up on Peter, gave him a second chance, and he became the great apostle on the day of Pentecost. So, when the Bible speaks of being born again, that means you've got another chance coming. Second, you think your life stinks? Why don't you take a whiff of Jonah? You know, the last verse of the second chapter said the fish vomited. It didn't say he spewed. He vomited Jonah up on the dry ground. So there he is laying in a pool of vomit. My life stinks. Well, I know you'd like to start your new life and your new ministry from a position of dignity and respectability, but that's not what Jonah did. You have to understand, you came out of vomit. And you say, but nobody's going to accept me because my life stinks. Well, whether it's a divorce, a jail sentence, you fell off the wagon, alcoholic, or whatever it was that you've done. You know, the worst thing is 2 Peter 2 and verse 22. The sow is returned to her wallowing, and the dog is returned to his vomit. But you find yourself in a place of vomit, that's okay. Turn to God. He can take you from vomit to victory. And then number 3, sometimes raw preaching is better than dignified preaching. Now, for me, I like my pastor to use proper grammar and be dressed in a nice suit and tie. But you know, Jonah, it says, arise and go to Nineveh. He's still laying on the beach in a pool of vomit with seaweed wrapped around his head. What'd he do? He got up and he ran to the city of Nineveh and started preaching. This place is doomed. And listen to me, folks, that was raw preaching. Nothing dignified about a seaweed prophet. Amen. Sometimes you need an educated preacher, but sometimes you need raw preaching. And then number 4, I've got to ask the question, are you ready to do what I've called you to do now? Are you going to obey me? You know, verse 2, it says, go to Nineveh, that great city, and preach the preaching that I bid you preach. Now, Jonah might have wanted to go there and give 7 easy steps to successful Christian living. Or he might have wanted to go to Nineveh and preach on how to prosper in the coming tough time. Well, tough times are coming. There'd been a great eclipse. If you read history, there were 2 plagues or epidemics that hit Nineveh at this time, and there was civil war going on. And but the Lord said, I want you to preach what I tell you to preach, and that is, you got one sermon. Go to the center of town and say, within 40 days, this city is doomed, and Nineveh will be no more. Okay? Obey God. And then number 5, it's better to face your fears and head straight into the wind. You remember Jonah was afraid of Nineveh. That's why he wanted to go to Tarshish. But once you spent 3 days in the belly or the gut of a fish, you lose all fear. Listen, God's not giving you the spirit of fear. The king of Nineveh doesn't bother me. I've faced death. I've been to the bottom of the bars of the earth, and I've been swallowed by a fish. And if that doesn't scare me, nothing scares me. And 3 days journey to get to Nineveh, it says he entered a 1-day journey. In other words, he went 3 days journey in 1 day. You got that kind of a call of God on your life. It will propel your feet and get you to the heart of where you're supposed to go to obey God. God promises a second chance. Take his grace and be changed today. Kris here. Thanks for being a part of my program. Share this with a friend. We'll see you tomorrow with more on Jonah, the inside story.